Top most shocking facts about ancient Egypt you probably didn't know. King Tut and his half-sister Ankhesenaten had two daughters together, neither of which survived infancy, which researchers believe was due to a long lineage of inbreeding. As such, King Tut's death marked the end of his family's rule. Beer had been regularly consumed in ancient Egypt in both wealthy and poor households. In fact, men, women, and children all drank beer regularly, as it was considered to be a great source of nutrition. During the process of mummification, it would take about a mile's worth of bandages to wrap a mummy. This was the most time-consuming part. Although slavery was common in the ancient Egyptian civilization among the wealthy and royal society, the pyramids were not actually built with slave labor. Egyptologists have found evidence suggesting the laborers were farmers who worked on the pyramids during flooding, not being able to work on their own farms. Top interesting facts about ancient Egypt. Cocaine mummy. The mummy of priestess Hanet Tawi was found to contain traces of ingested cocaine, nicotine, and inhaled hashish through hair testing. All substances originally unique to the Americas, fueling the theory that the ancient Egyptians may have reached the New World thousands of years before Columbus. A pharaoh's hair was considered sacred and was never to be seen. He or she would always wear a crown or a headdress called a nemes. King Tut wore sandals with his enemies painted on the soles so that wherever he went, he was trampling on his foes. Ancient Egyptians believed that the tears of the goddess Isis made the Nile overflow every year. They would celebrate with a festival called the Night of the Teardrop. Top interesting facts about ancient Egypt. Cocaine mummy. The mummy of priestess Hanet Tawi was found to contain traces of ingested cocaine, nicotine, and inhaled hashish through hair testing. All substances originally unique to the Americas, fueling the theory that the ancient Egyptians may have reached the New World thousands of years before Columbus. A pharaoh's hair was considered sacred and was never to. Top most surprising facts about ancient Egypt you won't find in a textbook. Ancient Egyptians considered being hairy as a sign of inferior social status. As such, Egyptian priests would shave their entire body every 3 days. The society created primitive tools for shaving, including the first ever waxing paste, a mix of sugar and beeswax. There are many theories surrounding exactly how King Tut passed away at the young age of 19, but one of the most prominent beliefs is that he was killed by a hippopotamus. Egyptologists believe the hippo charged at Tut, who couldn't run away fast enough due to his clubfoot and broken leg. Mice were a common prescription for ancient Egyptian children. When infants were ill, mice were eaten as a treatment by their mothers, who would help heal the ill child. Mouse bones were also strung around the necks of children who were experiencing bedwetting. Top 5 facts about ancient Egyptians you might not know. Did you know they valued cats so much harming one was a serious crime? That's one level of cat love. Pyramids are their signature, but did you know they're aligned to true north with impeccable precision? Makes one wonder about their celestial knowledge. Ever wondered why Egyptians are pictured sideways in their art? They believed presenting all body parts ensured immortality. Talk about attention to detail. Surprisingly, Egyptians were not just about mummy making, they also invented toothpaste. Minty fresh breath was indeed important even back then. Lastly, their calendar is the precursor to the one we use today. 365 days in a year, thank the Egyptians. Facts about the sex lives of ancient Egyptians. Did you know pharaohs performed public fertility rituals? These were not just symbolic, but practical demonstrations of their virility and power. They had a unique contraceptive method too. Bizarrely, crocodile dung was used in a form of contraception. Can you imagine? Even their gods had spicy lives. The sky deity Nut was believed to swallow the sun god Ra every night, leading to sensual interpretations. Finally, ancient Egyptian art was incredibly explicit, not to incite lust, but to educate the young and maintain societal harmony. Like this video? Subscribe for more content like this. Top 5 facts about the ancient Egyptians I bet you didn't know. Let's start with breakfast. Fancy a loaf of bread with a side of teeth? Egyptians had bread so sandy it wore down their teeth. Next, let's talk hygiene. Ancient Egyptians were known for their cleanliness, but their makeup. It was made from lead-based minerals. Eye infection, anyone? Did you know that they loved board games? Forget about PlayStation, the game of Senate was the rage during those times. Let's talk fashion. Wool was considered impure, linen was the in thing. However, lice were a common problem. Wealthy Egyptians kept Nile crocodiles as pets. These dangerous creatures were sometimes adorned with jewelry and lived in specially designed pools. The story of creation and the Egyptian god, Ra. Our story begins with the creator Adam. When the breath of life was strong and ready, Adam decided it was time for creation to begin. And so an island emerged and Adam manifested itself into the form of Ra, the Egyptian sun god. Ra created out of himself the first gods, Shu, god of dryness and air, and his partner Tefnut, the goddess of moisture, rain and dew, who would engender other gods to complete the cosmos, including Geb the earth god and Nut the sky goddess. Every evening when the sun disappears, the god Ra rides his sacred ship to cross the Nile underground. Ra crosses the 12 gates in the underworld, Duat, representing 12 hours of the night. He fights against the forces of chaos, represented by the serpent of Phobos, with the help of the god Set, who threatens the serpent of Phobos with his spear, finishing his chaotic and dangerous trip just in time to rise again the next morning. The top craziest facts about ancient Egypt that sound made up. Part 9. The Persian king Cambyses once used cats against ancient Egypt in the Battle of Pelusium. Cambyses ranged before his frontline cats and whatever other animals the Egyptians hold sacred. The Egyptians immediately stopped their operations out of fear of hurting the animals. Lettuce was a symbol of Min, the god of fertility, as far back as 2700 BCE. Therefore, lettuce was seen as a sex symbol and aphrodisiac in ancient Egypt. There was a gay couple named Khnumhotep and Niankhkhnum who owned a nail salon that tended to the pharaoh Nusere-Ini. The pharaoh valued them so much they were buried face to face in an expensive royal tomb funded by him. Ancient Egypt's greatest pharaoh of the 19th dynasty. Top facts about Ramses the Great. Ramses II was of non-royal origins. Ramses was named after his grandfather, the great pharaoh Ramses I, who brought their commoner family to the ranks of royalty through his military prowess. He lived to be in his 90s at a time when the average lifespan of an ancient Egyptian man was only around 30 years old. In the 30th years of his reign, Ramses was ritually transformed into an Egyptian god. Ramses the Great was credited with signing one of the earliest known peace treaties. It is unknown exactly how many children he had, but the rough estimate is around 96 sons and 60 daughters. And lastly, there were so many people trying to rob his grave that he had been moved from place to place, eventually found inside a plain wood coffin. Top most insane facts about ancient Egypt you've never heard of. Cleopatra invented the first vibrator. Cleopatra is said to have invented the earliest version of the vibrator by filling an empty box with bees, angering them by likely shaking the box, and placing the box against her genitals. Baboons were trained to perform everyday tasks. In ancient Egypt, they managed to train baboons to perform tasks such as catching criminals, picking fruit, making beer, and even dancing. Cat owners shaved off their eyebrows when their cats died. When the family cat died, every member of the household would shave off their eyebrows to mourn its death. We bet no one would shave off their eyebrows for you. Top most insane. The process of death, as told by the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Egyptians believed you prepared for death all your life by being a good person and adhering to moral values. At the moment of death, the soul, Ka, and life force, Be, were believed to separate from the body. Following the funerary preparations, the soul is met by the Egyptian god of the dead, Anubis. It would then embark on a journey through the underworld, encountering different obstacles and challenges. The deceased then had to recite the negative confessions, declaring their innocence of 42 sins. The soul faced judgment in the Hall of Ma'at, where the heart of the deceased was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, symbolizing truth and justice. The god Osiris presided over this judgment. If the heart was lighter, the soul could proceed to the afterlife. If heavier, the soul faced the threat of being devoured by the demon Ammit. The top 3 most interesting facts about ancient Egypt. You probably didn't know part 5. One female pharaoh, Hatshepsut, felt people didn't take her seriously, so she wore a long, ancient Egyptian-style beard. Although she didn't wear it all the time, the beard helped her to look similar to the god Osiris. It is rumored that an American enterprising businessman in the early 1900s wanted to save some money making wrapping paper for food and imported some old brown mummy paper. His plan ultimately failed when people started catching cholera. The ancient Egyptian port city Heracleion was said to have collapsed into the sea. Everyone thought it was a myth until 1933, when a British Air Force pilot spotted the undersea ruins. They've only visited less than 5% of the site, and their findings include coins, tools, and statues of gods. There are several statues of an Egyptian pharaoh that no one can recognize. Top shocking ancient Egyptian stories you won't find in history books. Part 1. Everyone knows about the tale of the husband and wife duo Osiris and Isis and how she famously gathered the pieces of his body to put him back together. But did you know they were brother and sister? Yes, it's true. And Isis only found 41 of the 42 pieces of Osiris, the missing piece being his member. She constructed a new member for her husband and revived him long enough to get her pregnant. He then went on to rule the underworld. Ra, the sun god, had quite a temper. During one of his rages, he ordered his daughter Hathor to slaughter all the humans she could find. The goddess quickly carried out the command, offing so many people that she was wading in blood. Ra eventually had a change of heart and decided to save the rest of humanity. To stop Hathor, Ra filled 7,000 jars with beer, disguising it as human blood. The goddess became so drunk that she gave up her mission and spared humanity. Top amazing facts about ancient Egypt you probably didn't know. The average lifespan of an ancient Egyptian man was only 35 years of age. What's worse, women barely made it to their 30s. Mummies have shown us pharaohs and wealthy ancient Egyptians were often obese, not fit and trim as portrayed in statues and in art. Ancient Egyptians used limestone when building the Giza pyramids, which they polished to be smooth, white, and bright. This is how we know the Giza pyramids today. This is what they actually look like. Today, the Giza pyramids are blackened by pollution and corroded by both natural elements and humans. Ancient Egyptians were also mathematical geniuses. For example, the inner sanctuary of the main temple in Abu Simbel was made in such a way that the sun would shine on Ramesses II and the gods Amun and Ra. The sun would never shine on the god Ptah, seated next to the other 4, who is a god of the underworld. This is because he should always remain in darkness. Top